Welcome back to Practical AutoCAD and Inventor. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Command Prompt Calculator, an underused tool in AutoCAD. The Command Prompt Calculator runs a 3D calculator utility in the command line that will help you to evaluate vector expressions that combine points, vectors, and numbers, or real and integer expressions like 2 plus 2 and 4 plus 4, or multiply or divide or whatever. The calculator performs those mathematical functions in the command line so that you can use those numbers that go along with your drawings. And so I'm going to show you here how you can use that command line calculator to get some numbers that are useful to you. So let's see how this will work in AutoCAD. First of all, let's assume that I wanted to draw a circle in this. Maybe this is a washer or a gasket or something, and I want a circle that's halfway between the radius of this circle here and this circle here, so that the center is right there. There's a few ways I could do this. Graphically, I could come in and I could draw a line that goes from the quadrant of this circle. Come on, a line from the quadrant of this circle to the quadrant of this circle, and then I could draw the circle there, and then I could erase the line. And that's one way I could do it. I could also do the same thing by using the mid between 2 points option in AutoCAD. But if I want a different way of doing that, I can use the command line calculator. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and enter that circle command, and then it's going to ask me to specify the command, or the center of the circle. So I'm going to use the command line calculator, which is a command that you're going to run transparently. Running a command transparently means that you can temporarily suspend a command to do something else, and then when you're done, it'll automatically resume that command. You might be familiar with transparent commands like zoom and pan and those kinds of things. But if I come in here and type apostrophe, which is what instigates that transparent command, and then CAL. Okay, so on the command line down here, I've typed apostrophe CAL. I'm going to run the command line calculator transparently. I'll press enter. Notice down here on the command line now, it says enter your expression. And what I want to do is I want to say, okay, I want to choose the quadrant of this circle, then the quadrant of this circle, and divide that distance by 2. So I'll just simply come in here and I'll say open expressions. I gotta say open parentheses, the quadrant of the first circle plus the quadrant of the second circle, close, and then divided by 2. So what it's going to do is it's going to, when I hit enter, it's going to prompt me to measure, pick my first circle, to pick my second circle. It'll measure that distance, divide it by 2, and select that point. When I press enter, notice it's asking me to pick my circle, so I'll say I want the quadrant of this one, I want the quadrant of this one, and it picks that point for me. So again, just kind of like mid between 2 points, but a little bit different. Now if I want to, also I could use a calculator expression. Let's say that I want this circle to have a diameter that's 1/8 of that larger circle. I could come in here and say, okay, apostrophe CAL. Again, I want that command line calculator. It's going to say enter your expression. Well, I want 1/8 times the radius of, and then press enter. It's asking me to select my circle. I'll pick that one, and it puts it in there. So now this circle has a diameter or a radius that's 1/8 of this one, and I could prove it by coming in here and measuring. That one has a radius of 7.5, and that one has a radius of 15/16. So we're all good to go there. Everything is exactly as it should be. Okay. Now you can also do the same thing with other expressions. So for example, let's say that I wanted the bottom of this to have the same radius, as far as these two things go, so that I could mimic this around here. This is just the fillet command. So I'll come in here and I'll say, okay, F for fillet, and it asks me, it says, what do I want to do? Select my objects. But if you look on the command line down here, you'll see that the radius right now is currently set to 0. So I'll say I want to change my radius, and it says, what fillet radius do you want? Well, I don't know what that radius is, right? So I could say, from the endpoint there to the endpoint there, and I could pick it, Or I could just say apostrophe CAL for command line calculator, and it's saying, what's your expression? Well, I just want the radius of, and I could pick that one there, and then it enters that radius. Notice it measured it 1.5 and it entered in there. So now I can do the same thing there. Again, I can do it again. I'll say, okay, let's fill it. We'll change the radius. Use the command line calculator. I want the radius of, I'll pick that arc right there, and now it's ready to go, and I can do this one. But I'm not just limited to mimicking a radius. I could do things like add a distance or multiply a distance or whatever it happens to be. So let's say that on this end, I wanted this one to have a radius that's twice this one. Again, I could come in here and I could say, okay, let's again fill it, and then I want to say R for radius. I'll use that calculator again. And then my expression is going to be the radius times 2. And I'll press enter. So it's asking me for the radius. I'll pick this one. So it does the math. It says, okay, it was 1.5. Now it's 3 because I multiplied it by 2. And I can say now that plus that. Okay. Now for my outside, I could do a similar thing here. Or I know that, you know, the distance of this line, the length of this line is 2. So just to show you another way, I could come in here and say, again, fill it, my radius, and again, I'll say that calculator. It's going to be the radius of something plus 2. So I'll pick this radius here, and now I can fill it that, and those will be concentric because this distance is 2, that distance is 2. So it just gives you other ways of using those tools. If you want to know all of the information about the command line calculator, go to the AutoCAD website or the Autodesk website and just type in command line calculator for AutoCAD. It'll give you all the resources with all the expressions and some examples of how to use them. Thanks for watching.